Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Breakdown to Breakthrough. Just wait for a few seconds for people to arrive and check in. I know that the stream is a little bit delayed between here and LinkedIn, so I'll just give a couple more seconds and then we'll get started. If you can give me a thumbs up, just so I know that you can hear me and all is going well, that'd be great. Let me know where you're joining from. Hi, Vikas. How are you doing? Hope you're well. Sorry, just got the stream there on my phone as well to make sure that the sound was coming through okay. All looks good. So I'll get started. My name's David Wood. I'm an entrepreneur for 30 years. I've started and scaled my own businesses from scratch up to revenue of just over 31 million in annual revenue a year. Over the last 30 years, I've accrued about 400 million in my own businesses in revenue. And those businesses were specializing in food and drink distribution to high secure areas. But my journey is um, I left school without an education. I grew up in the Midlands in a working class family. Had three jobs when I was at school. So I had a paper round. I worked in a fish and chip shop in the evenings, and then I started caddying at a golf course on a Saturday just to earn some extra money. And that set me up for life. Really, is having that work ethic. Because when I came out of being a professional golfer, um, I was in a bit of a low point, let's say, as I really wanted to be a golf pro. That's all I ever wanted to do. I didn't have a plan B. So when I had to stop playing because of a knee injury, I was a bit side blinded and didn't know what to do. So I ended up working, selling packaging for a local company whilst I was figuring out what to do. And I was at a party, and at that party, I met someone who had a challenge with their suppliers, and they were about to lose their job. And I said I'd help them, and my entrepreneurial spirit kicked in. I went off and found some suppliers who could help, and that's how I started my first business. So it was very much by accident, and I knew nothing at all about the industry. Where a lot of business owners, a lot of business founders will start their business from a technical skill. So they're an accountant, a mechanic, a butcher, a dentist. They've got technical skills, and that's why they start their business. I started mine to solve a problem, which was I didn't know what I wanted to do, and therefore I always knew I wanted to control my own destiny. What I didn't realize what I was going to do over the next 11 years was build a business which was very successful. So the business grew from an initial investment of £3,000 to 24 million in annual revenue before I sold it the first time round to an investment bank, to venture capitalists. And what I actually built, although I built a business which was generating lots of revenue and lots of profit, we were making £2 million EBITDA a year. I built a business around me where I was almost stuck in the center of it. It was like a vortex that I was constantly spinning round, being sideblinding by the team, asking me questions, asking me to make decisions. And because I was in the thick of the business and because I was in the day to day of the business, um, I didn't realize what I'd done. And I didn't realize what I'd done until after I'd sold the business. And I had a breakdown, which was for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't have a plan after I exited the business. So when I sold the business, the day after everyone says, "Oh, it's amazing," you're going to be on a high. It's actually not that great. You sign all the documents, they wire the money to you. Generally, that doesn't happen same day, so you don't have the cash. You've signed over everything, and then the next day you've got no phone calls, no emails, no networking events to go to. Um, and it is very strange from working 16, 18 hour days to doing absolutely nothing. And I didn't have a plan. um, I took the advice of my bank at the time on what to do with the cash, how to invest it, and I took their advice, and invested in property, in bricks and mortar, and subsequently lost the lot within 18 months to 2 years. So, so there are two elements to why I had a breakdown. And the first one was the financial impact, because I ended up losing everything and about £500,000. And the second one was I'd worked for 11 years, 16, 18 hour days, 6 to 7 days a week. Very few holidays, very little time off. If I did go away on holiday, I'd be on my phone all the time. I'd be on the emails. I'd be in the business zone while the family were by the pool. And um, I love that, but at the same time, it's not good for your health, physical or mental health. So, what I decided to do when I was given the opportunity to buy the business back, because they'd actually failed, so the business had dropped from £24 million in annual revenue down to £8 million in annual revenue, and from 2 million EBITDA down to £500,000 loss. So the business had gone backwards over 3 years. I came in as a consultant. I ended up negotiating a deal to buy the business back for a couple of £100, and I wanted to rescale it. But one of the decisions I made before I did that was, if I'm going to rebuild the business, I can't do it the same way as I did day one. And day one was working 18-hour days, doing everything, being center of all the decisions, open door policy, all those things. I had to change, but I didn't know that. I just knew that I needed to change something. So what I did was I hired a FTSE 250 MD as my coach and mentor. And I said, look, these are the things that I'm really, really good at. I'm good at networking. I'm really good with people. I'm good at seeing a commercial angle. I'm good at negotiation. Those things I'm absolutely fine at. What I'm not so good at is, this is what happened last time, so I need to find fixes for that. And what we identified was most of them was internal strategy stroke system process fixes that I need to put in place, which a lot of people don't think about. So, and as the business grows, you have to constantly be reviewing those systems, processes, so to make sure that they scale with your business. And that's something which I hadn't done the first time round. So I started working with this mentor, and coach, advisor, and we started to implement certain things that would help me steer the ship, or be the captain of the ship, but not actually be doing the work. And one of the first things that we did is realize that I was doing a lot of transactional tasks. Originally, I was doing a lot of transactional tasks. I was monitoring my own email, handling my own calendar, booking my own transportation, all those sorts of things. And it was deemed to have a secretary, a PA, EA, VA, whatever you want to call them these days, a luxury. And when you're running your own business and trying to scale your own business, it's deemed as a luxury. Um, on the contrary, it's not. If anyone watching does have their own business, or they're part of a management team, and you find that you're drowning in tasks, one of the things to look at, it really is to get some support in the administration area first and foremost: email, calendar, transportation booking. Not the high level strategic stuff, but the day to day running of the business. the number one hire I made, taking a business from 8 million to 31 million in 5 years, one of the most instrumental hires was hiring an EA. And it certainly wasn't a luxury. It was invaluable. You know, probably worth 100 grand a year or 200 grand a year. Hard to put a figure on it, but it freed up 80% of my time. But it will only free up 80% of your time if you know what you're going to delegate to them. And it's about getting the priorities right and what you hand off and what you retain. And also making sure that you do the stuff that you love doing, but also that adds maximum value to your business. So my first hire was an EA, on top of the stuff that we had already. And we also had a really poor internal culture. Um, the business had been run just looking at figures, facts and figures, which is what venture capitalists, private equity look at, which is obviously right. They need the numbers to be going in the right way. But you also need to be building that culture. You need to build an environment where people who are in the business want to work in the business and strive in that environment. Historically, the way I hired was very transactional. We'd have a role come up, someone would resign, and we'd need someone to, let's say, do order processing. We'd hire someone who could use a computer. We'd show them the computer, we'd show them the system, we'd tell them how to do what they were going to do. But then their job from that point on, looking back, was very boring. It was just transactional on a day-to-day basis. And how we changed that was we made every team member accountable and responsible for something in the business, which was important. So if someone was looking after sales orders, they were also in charge of the customer journey. So they would have a greater input and a better understanding of what was happening in the background with customers. And then they would advise the rest of the team on what we needed to do to improve the customer journey. And they would advise the salespeople or integrate and communicate with the sales team and work together on how they could improve that focus. Rather than the sales team coming to me and saying something's not working, they were going to customer services and speaking to customer services team and working how they could fix that or improve it. It would then get communicated up to me if there was a high level of investment required within that capital expenditure. So we built a 90-day plan around. Sorry, just rewind. When I hired the mentor, what we did is we analysed where I was, what we needed to fix, and then we built a 90-day plan around the number one priorities of what we needed to fix. And from that, we then worked out what resources we required to make those fixes. And then we looked at the hiring process that we'd used historically. And we worked out that that wasn't the best way to hire people. So we ended up running a process where we would do a recruitment evening. So if we were hiring stock controllers, someone for stock control or purchasing, buyers, for instance, we would hold an open evening where anyone interested in that role, regardless of their CV, could come and listen to us talk about the business, what our aspirations were for the business, and then we would talk about the culture, the environment, our core behaviours, and our core values on how we wanted to grow the business moving forward. And following that, because we'd had some challenges, like I say, the internal culture had declined after I sold it the first time round. So we needed to turn the business around, but also change the culture. What we found by holding these events was, as we were talking about values, core behaviors, the the environment that we wanted to build. People would leave because we were talking about, we wanted everyone to be positive, hardworking, focused, professional. And if they didn't want to behave in that way, that's okay, but they wouldn't be right for us. And they'd be wasting their time and our time to apply for the role. And what we found was that cut out a lot of the sifting through hundreds of CVs to find the right people, because we found the people with the right culture. All what we needed to then do was look at the skills and their experience. And we ended up hiring more on core values, core behaviors than we did on skills. Skills can be taught, but core values, core behaviors really can't. If it's not in you, it's not in you. So we ended up building a really strong A team, and that's why we took the business from 8 million to 31 million in 5 years, is because we changed the hiring process and we talked very much about core behaviors, core values. Um, and we also had a very simple matrix that we used to score our internal personnel, whether they're an A team player, a B team player, C team, or D team player. And wherever they scored in that matrix, we would have a conversation with them. And that conversation would be, if they weren't an A team player, would be, this is where we feel you are. Would you agree or disagree? And if you disagree, we'd have a conversation. And then if they agreed, then we said, right, is this something you want to fix? Is it something you think you're capable of fixing? And do you want to go on that journey? And if the answer was yes, I feel I'm capable of fixing it. I want to fix it. If you can help me fix it, then, I'm good. Then we would get the help and support they required, whether that was a technical skill, behavioral skill, or whatever type of personal development they needed. We would invest in them to move them up into the 18 box, top right corner. And if they weren't, then that became a conversation about, are you right for the business? And most people, once you start having that conversation, normally resign quite quickly. If it got to a stage where someone wasn't right for the business, they're a good egg, but they still weren't performing, we would help them find something else before we onboarded someone new. And by creating that environment, we found that more and more people came on board, and that's why we could speed up the process of the growth. And that's why, we were growing really quick. We were number one in the industry that we were in, which was travel retail, duty free, consolidation, distribution to travel retail and duty free. So what that did for me personally, and why I've called this today Breakdown to Breakthrough, is you need to be aware of building your business around you. So the first thing that you need to do is be aware, if you're constantly got people knocking on your door, sending you emails, phoning you up, WhatsApp, Slack, or whatever you use, and you are pivotal to everything going on in the business, you're building the business the wrong way. So that's the first point. Secondly, you are going to burn yourself out. I thought I was a golf professional. I was fit. I was healthy. I used to walk at least one round of golf a day. So 14 to 18,000 steps, sometimes two rounds a day, and hit thousands of golf balls. I was fit and healthy, and I thought I was Superman. But when I had my breakdown, I did not see it coming. And strangely enough, one of my clients, I've helped, they're scaling really well, super successful. I had a message off one of them and said, you're absolutely right. I didn't see it come in, but I think I caught it in time. And they were bootstrapping, and I told them to bootstrap, but I also said that they needed to mind themselves and take regular breaks. And then now hiring their first hires. There's a team of guys that have been building the business, but one of them was almost at burnout, and burnout is not a nice place to be. You can have a very mild burnout, but when you're burnt out to the degree where you can't think straight, you wake up every day, you're immersed in the business, you have no time for your family, for your friends or to do the things you love, it's time to reevaluate, because at some point it will get you, and it's not nice. So here's what I suggest. Um, if you've got a pen and pad, first of all, think about how you're currently running your business. If you're in a leadership team or if you own your own business, SME, think about how you are running your business, and if you are the hub to that wheel and you've got many spokes coming off and they're all leading to you. So first of all, think about that. Second thing is think about what is the first task or first function within the business you could start delegating to someone else in your business. Now, easier said than done if you're a solopreneur. If you're a solopreneur, I would look at, if it's finance, speaking to your accountant, see if they can do a little bit more of the heavy lifting, or hire a fractional CFO. And if you don't know one and you need a fractional CFO, I know a very good one, and I can put you in touch with them. If it's marketing, and marketing is a pain in the arse, I don't know what you guys think who are listening. Put a comment, or send me an emoji if you think marketing is a pain in the arse. Social media now, unfortunately, it's here forever. And now it's almost like everyone's got to be a social media expert and run a media company on top of doing what they do. But if it's social media, look at a VA. Again, there's some very good VAs in the UK, some very good VA agencies. There are a few overseas. If you don't mind using companies overseas, there's a link which I can send you if you DM me saying VA. I can send you a link to a company overseas where you could get degree educated, fully vetted VA for about £800 a month full time to £1,000 a month full time, and that's bachelor degree educated, so very, very good quality. If it's something else within the business, see if you can bring someone in part time to take over those things. But don't hand over the things that you're really, really good at. So if you're really good at sales, don't hand over the sales. In fact, sales is probably one of the last things I'd hand over, even though you're probably not a salesperson because you started a business because of your technical skill. Sales, because you need to keep your finger on the pulse. Obviously, if you've got a bigger team, then yes, you would hire someone in sales to grow that element of the business. Once you've looked at your resources and what you can hand off and prioritize and hand off, then I'd look at mapping out a 90-day plan on what you can do over the next 90 days. A, to grow your business. B, to reduce your input in those things that are happening in the business. And C, get your time back to do the things that you should be doing. And strategy wasn't high on my agenda first time round. I knew I needed to find more customers, and I knew I needed to find new product categories that I could sell to my existing customers. And that was my daily routine, basically. And that grew the business. We weren't very strategic about it. It just happened to work. But having a proper strategy and tactics would grow the business a lot faster. And these are the things that we did when we grew the business the second time around. So if you imagine, I took the business from £3,000 to 24 million, 2 million EBITDA in 11 years, and I was working 16, 18 hour days, 6 to 7 days a week. And the second time round, I grew the business to 31 million in 5 years, and I was working 80% less. So, yes, I had a much bigger team in the end, but that was only because we had the strategy right, we had the tactics right, and we had the right team. So those are the things that I would implement Now, I'm looking at the comments. No one's put a comment in. I've waffled for a while. I want to open this up now to a Q&A. If you've got any questions about scaling, if you've got a challenge with scaling your business or internal operations or managing people, if you want to pop it in the chat, I'll answer your questions as we go along. Okay, so whilst I'm waiting for those questions to come through, if there's going to be any, what I'd like to say is um, because of the platform, there's a lot of people on LinkedIn which really don't like to show that they've got a challenge in their business, or they're conscious that their team might see the question come up. Um, Send me a DM on LinkedIn. Obviously, it's private. Number one, I never ever share or sell data. So that's the first thing. Number two, if you ask me a question or if you've got a challenge and you want me to have a chat with you about it, I'll happily do that. And like I say, I never share or publish anyone's data or say this person for this company's had this, internal challenge for a while. I'll come back to you one to one. We can do a Zoom call, or I can answer you in writing, whichever you prefer. But we can do that offline, away from the live, if you would prefer. And if you want to find out more about the services that I offer, obviously, with lives, this is, part of the way that I sell, and to prove that I'm not just someone who's read a book, although there's plenty of books behind me. I have actually grown my own businesses. I help lots of different businesses in lots of different industries, from canned wine businesses to biopesticides businesses, to IP lawyers, so on and so forth. Um, the skills that I have now and what I do now is I work as a fractional COO. So I would work like one day a month or one day a week, depending on the requirements of a business, to help business owners, business leaders, and management teams um, improve the way that their business works, whether that's making it more efficient, whether it's about fixing things which aren't working, whether it's about scaling or preparing it for an exit. I help with those things by way of a fractional service where I come in and I help you do those things. Or I work as an advisor where you can run things past me, and I will answer, or I will give you advice, and then you go off and implement that with the team. Hi, Mark. Hope you're well. Thanks for agreeing with those. Appreciate that. Hope you're well. And I hope you found your investment that you were looking for as well. So that'd be good. But yeah, if there's no questions, I'll just give it a couple more seconds. Yeah, I'll end the live, but you can always DM me here on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Facebook and TikTok. I've got a website, businessgrowthmadeeasy.com, and you can find out more about my services there. So I'll just leave it a couple more seconds. And if your comments don't come through, then I'll end the live. And I'd like to thank you for watching. Yeah, just gonna say a couple more seconds and then I'll end the live. But please do DM me, and I think this goes to my feed as a live, but I think it also stays on as a recording. So thanks for watching, and like I say, DM me if you need to know more.